Namaste and a very warm welcome to yet another episode of Social Impact Leaders with Simply Suparnaa. A lot of requests are coming in to be featured on this very unique interaction. But our only very humble submission is that people, individuals, organizations who have actually been acknowledged by the SABERA jury over the past 6 years are the ones who have been extended the invite to be here. In case you would like to be featured here and you're doing some amazing amount of work in alignment with sustainability, ESG, SDG, we would love to know more about you. But you will need to first apply for the SABERA Awards. There's a whole process. You can get in touch with us and the team, and we'll guide you further. I have a very special guest, as usual. I think there are some amazing initiatives and organizations that SABERA has acknowledged, and one of them being the WNS Cares Foundation. Before I introduce this very special person to you, I'd like to start by paying my obeisance to the higher power. Shakti has held me in good stead, and I will start by reciting a very old Sanskrit verse, the Saraswati Vandana. Ya kundendu tushar haradhavla, ya shubhra vastravrita, ya veena varidanda manditakara, ya shweta padamasana, ya brahmachitta shankar prabhutibhi, devai sada vandita, sa mam patu saraswati, bhagavati nishesh jadyapaha. This is a very old Sanskrit verse, and what it essentially talks about is dispelling the darkness of ignorance that resides in our hearts through the light of knowledge, through the light of wisdom. And this very wisdom is something which my very special guest is involved with day in and day out. I'd like you to welcome along with me Shamini, who is the co-founder of WNS Cares Foundation. And also the creator of CyberSmart. She has over 2 decades of hands-on experience in community development. And since inception, the WNS or Cares Foundation, which is WCF, has touched close to 1.5 lakh children through digital and literacy programs in over 316 schools across 12 countries. Wow, that's no mean feat, Shamini. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Suparna, for having me here. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for the kind words as well.
Absolutely. And Shamini is joining us from London, where they have moved over the last few years. And there is also a very, very interesting reason why Shamini has been in London for the past few years, because of her connection with education. And let's start from there itself. I think WCF is everything to do with education. It has a lot to do with digital education, digital literacy, and a lot more to do with cybersecurity. So there are these intersectionalities that we see both in education, in digital literacy, and being safe online. How was WCF conceived and why?
So I have always been interested in giving back to society, as it were. And it's, it comes from a place of gratitude where I feel I can do something, whether it's big or small. It's just that we've been very lucky that it's grown to what it is at this point of time. And WCF started when my husband joined WNS, and I, told him, I said, we can always create a specialized CSR program. They did have one that was already there, but, something that was more formal, and that's what we did. And, one of the things I always feel is that there's no point, me, for example, saying, okay, this is what I want to do. It has to come from a lot of other people as well. And for me, when we do work like this, volunteerism is very important. So we went back to the employees and said, what is it that you want to do? And almost 75% of the people said, no, we'd like to do education. And I was so happy because I am a big, big fan of education. And I feel that whatever age you are, wherever you are, education is invaluable. So I was really happy with that. And that's how we started with education. And we decided also that volunteerism is going to be a very big part. So that's the second pillar of, of what we're going to do. And we started looking at schools in and around our campuses. And these were basically municipal schools, schools that needed resources. And we began with computers. We began with computer labs, added on libraries, and then it just became a whole organic process. As our volunteers went in and said, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, and that's how WCF has grown.
Wow, that's quite a journey indeed. And it seems that your entire life has some influence or the other as far as pedagogy is concerned. I know through our earlier conversation you were telling me your mother has been a teacher, and you yourself are very driven with education. In fact, you've just also completed your PG diploma. I mean, how did that come about, and what are you doing with that kind of education? And how did after a gap of a little while, how did you manage to get back to school again?
So, Suparna, when I say I love education, I love studies, it's like it just goes really deep, to the extent that kids call me a nerd. And it's something that I always wanted to do. And I said, wow, to be able to study in, one of the most premium institutions in the world. And I just, for a lark, I applied at Oxford and I got in, and it was a year's program. It was so intense, and probably had I known the intensity, I may not have even applied for it. But yeah, so
What was it? What was the course?
it was a diploma in organizational leadership.
Ah, okay, okay. And I'm sure that this is going to be applied also with WNS or WCF, wherever you find the opportunity, right?
No, no, absolutely. It was an eye opener. And I think it just reinforced what I had always thought about education. I mean, we had like people from 33 countries and probably as many, industries. So the learning was tremendous. And to be able to pull those things and put it into WCF, I think it's been absolutely wonderful.
And I've also, in my introduction mentioned that WCF has an outreach in over 12 countries, right? Now, when you design programs for a specific geography, is it similar all across, or do you actually take into consideration some cultural nuances, etc.? That is one part of my question. The other being, is it received as well, or the challenges same across all geographies that you go, or have there been learnings otherwise?
So, Suparna, we started in India because that was like, the first block to kind of look at. And as people got to know of what we were doing in various other countries, they came in and they said, could we do the same? Could we replicate it? So it's
Okay.
basically a model that we have that is replicated elsewhere, taking into consideration, as you mentioned, the various nuances that are there. And I have to absolutely say that we have people, volunteers, who are so dedicated to the cause that, they're willing to go that extra mile to ensure that this umbrella, so we work under the umbrella of education. And there are some countries that need certain, different paths that lead to education. For example, say in India, we primarily work with municipal schools. In some of the other, foreign locations, we work with non-for-profits. But it's basically under the umbrella of education and what is required, what is the felt need in that country. And you
Right.
will be surprised that things like, computer literacy, for example, is a requirement across the globe. The need for real life skills across the globe. So these are things that, we've kind of picked up, very, very basic stuff, and which goes into each country and then gets amplified basis what the requirement is.
So while I hear you when you say that there is a requirement, especially in the marginalized sectors, as far as children are concerned, and this is corroborated, by my past interviewees, who have said that sometimes in remote villages, in places where there is not much exposure for the kids, for them to be exposed to even STEM learning is a great deal, is a big deal, and spark some amount of creativity within them. but I feel like today, as we are having this interaction in the morning in the capital of the country in Delhi, there was a huge scare across all schools, claiming to be a bomb threat. And as it kind of figured out that there was a 16-year-old kid who would send a mail according to that, and it spread like wildfire across the city, and there was panic which was created. I think this whole responsible netizen, this needs to not only be kind of accrued to only the marginalized, but also I think every one of us, our students in cosmopolitan cities across, probably they need to be not just accessing digital spaces, but also be responsible. Yes, we'll come to safety as well, but being responsible netizens as well.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And, while you speak of, you spoke of a very key word of exposure, cosmopolitan. These are the words that you use. So we did a very interesting program. I'll come back to, what you were talking about, the cyber stuff. But we did a very interesting program, which was focused on the theme of respect. So every year we do something called a Global Impact Day. We pick a theme for the year, and every location that we have participates, on that one particular theme. And the last one was on respect. So while we are also, teaching children very like identifiable skills to survive, we're also trying to give them skills for them to thrive and contribute as valuable citizens in the future. So that's why we pick themes like, say respect. And the reason I mentioned this is we had a cross-cultural kind of an interaction. So children from South Africa were speaking to children in India, children from Romania were speaking to children in Sri Lanka, and the kind of exposure and conversations that happened, they wouldn't have happened otherwise. Because, while we say remote, even, our children say in Bombay, in Chennai, to be able to speak to somebody in a different country, it was a totally different experience for them, right? And coming back to your question of, what you just
Being
mentioned about,
responsible, yes,
yeah,
yeah.
being responsible, and even what you mentioned, just sending a casual email. So part of the Global Impact Day, one of the things we picked up was being cyber security was actually the theme that we had. And when we did it, we realized that we were just touching the tip of the iceberg. And that's when we went into building this gamified model of CyberSmart. And children come back to us saying that, oh, we didn't even realize, like you said, it's just a simple casual for fun. It's a fun email. You don't even realize the consequences of it. And that is part of the reason, we do the CyberSmart, to make them aware of this. And what could you do if you're at the other end? For example, we had a kid who had an issue, and we contacted, I think the organization was called Arpan, if I'm not mistaken. They deal with, child abuse and stuff like that. And so there are multiple things going on. And in today's world where everything has gone digital, the impact of a very simple, so-called non-consequential act can have severe impact.
Sure, sure, absolutely. So we've spoken about education, we've spoken about digital spaces, we've spoken about the intersectionality of this, but I would love to know how you got interested in nutrition and how does that intersect with education?
So, like I said, Suparna, when we say education, we tend to think of academics. But we at WCF have consciously kind of kept academics, okay, we'll keep it to the professionals who do it. We are going to give children other skills that make them 360 degrees relevant to society, and, like I mentioned earlier, responsible citizens, contributors to society. So part of the Global Impact Day, one of the themes was physical literacy, that's PHY. And it wasn't just about, doing exercise and being healthy. It was also about eating healthy, right? Because you have so much of influx through the TV and, various other things that kind of tend to move you towards unhealthy food. And we just needed to bring back the importance of nutrition. And that's why we did the physical literacy program. And the nutrition was a very, very big part. And it's education, educating them about, you eat like this, and this is what will happen. Eat like this, and that is what will happen.
Yeah, I guess we've also acknowledged, the SABERA jury has acknowledged a lot of smaller non-profits who've been working in sectors, providing them a holistic kind of a well-being, which includes nutrition, because they've done, well, you don't need research to prove that, but as long as the bellies are full, unless they are, what education can be imparted. That also brings me to your connection with Akshay Patra. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, Akshay Patra is something that's very close to our hearts. And I happened to watch a TV program about the Akshay Patra kitchens. And I was very inspired by that. I said, wow. And I always wanted to do something in Chennai, which is where I grew up. And I just called them and I said, is there anything we can do for you? And they said, right now we're serving about 500 meals. I think it was breakfast at that point of time. But we'd love to mechanize the kitchen. So I said, yes, we're totally in. Tell us what you want. And it was a whole, I think, a 1.5 year process. They mechanized the whole place, and the entire kitchen was mechanized. And, I'm so happy that today we're able to serve 5,000 breakfasts a day. And like you said, the children, unless your bellies are full, there's nothing that's going to, unless you feed the stomach, you're not going to be able to feed the brain. And so they serve the breakfast to the government, municipal schools, as it were. And it's a very scientific process that they follow at the kitchen. In fact, like I mentioned earlier, if you would go and visit the kitchen, I would absolutely love for you to go and see it. Nutrition, every day they have a nutrition chart, and it is planned out for the month to ensure that the children get the required nutrition, the quantity. It is tasted by, every day it is tasted by about 4 people. It reaches all the schools in half an hour. So, it's a very scientific process. And this is something that we have invested in, personally, because Keshav's also from Chennai, and we really did want to do something over there. And it took a very different turn during COVID because schools were shut. And it's interesting to know that we were able to serve food to patients in hospitals, the caregivers in the hospitals, the doctors, the people, in the administration, the people who are helping, right on the ground, the people in the police. We were able to serve meals to them. And I think that was really a huge personal kind of high, as it were, that we were able to contribute for something that started so simply and so small.
Wow, that indeed is quite inspiring. And I'm back to cybersecurity. You mentioned cybersecurity, and increasingly we've seen now with the kind of cyber frauds that are coming about, the kind of maybe even security for kids who are online. There's a lot of you can't identify who you're chatting with. On the other hand, have you had or dealt with any such experiences as an organization or as an individual that has actually kind of, made your resolve even stronger for safer cyberspaces?
So we've had a number of these incidents, Shuparna, but the thing is that we don't directly deal with it because there are organizations that are specialized in dealing with it. Things like, stalking, because the kids don't know. And the interesting thing is, it is not restricted to a bracket of society. We found that, it's even part of, probably your kids, my kids, they don't really know the inner nuances of how to be safe on the net. And we also have realized, as we delve deeply into it, it's not just about the kids, it's the entire ecosystem. It's parents, it's teachers, it's, schools. So we started a very interesting program called a CyberSmart School, where we encourage schools to embrace this program wholeheartedly, have their teachers come on, take the different sections on CyberSmart for, teachers, for children, for parents, for volunteers. And then, once they reach a certain threshold, we say, okay, you are a cyber smart school, and we give them a certificate and that kind of a thing. So yes, cybersecurity is like, it cuts through every rank, every rank.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think last year on Women's Day, I had this interaction with this gentleman who handles the cyber cell as part of the police in New Delhi, and he shared some incidents with me wherein he says that this is not restricted to kids. It's women. It's middle-aged women. Literally, it's almost like single women are a target for a lot of people, and there is this gang, so to speak, in their parlance, that actually targets middle-aged women who are single and are looking for some kind of emotional stability or some kind of affection. And through platforms like social media, etc., they reach out to them, and there is a typical modus operandi where they befriend them, and then they claim to be a doctor or an engineer outside of India somewhere, and they're traveling to meet them, and then they're stuck at the customs and they want the monies, and that's where the extortion starts. And the women, gladly give them the money as well. And he says, as soon as we get this kind of a thing, we know who the gang is, we know where to find them, and they're actually sitting here in Delhi in one of the areas, and we go and nab them. And in one of these halls, we actually found out a lot of other women who were victims as well, but never bothered to actually report it, maybe because they still believe in the
No,
person.
there's
Or
also, Shubhana, there's also the fear of stigma, right? There's the fear of stigma. You go and then you come out publicly with it, and then, you know, say, for
yeah,
example, different people pick it up and stuff like that, and you
yeah,
don't want that. But it is
yeah.
a big issue. In fact, that's why we've, CyberSmart, we've tied up with various organizations, not just, other non-for-profits, but even organizations like the Hyderabad Cybersecurity, unit, and we've tied up with NASCOM, we've tied up with state governments to ensure that it's a very wholesome program. And like you mentioned, it's not just about kids. We are talking about kids because we have them as an audience where we can train them at this point of time, and it's constantly changing. So what perhaps we teach them today, you do it, you go through the CyberSmart program, and within like 2 weeks there's something new that's coming, but at least you have your base in place. That's important, and that's key.
Wow. Another thing which intrigues me, Shamini, is the fact that while your husband would be the CEO of the company, but you as the wife have actually, created something for a corporation. Now, tomorrow when you move out, or how will this structure exist?
It's a very interesting question, because this is something that I have always believed in, that when you have the philosophy of the organization deeply, deeply ingrained in the DNA of an organization, it it will run irrespective of who the leader is. It doesn't matter who sits at the top. It's just that the philosophy is so deep in the organization that it just carries on, that it demands. For example, our volunteers are so dedicated, and it's literally, that was one of the things that I started off with, saying that whatever we do at WCF, it has to be in the DNA of the organization. So it's not just about me, it's even about every employee volunteer. So even if you leave WNS, you go out there and you continue doing this, because it's not restricted to WCF. And I'm so happy to tell you that lots of people, who come back and said, yes, it's just in us. We don't feel complete if we don't go and volunteer outside. So I have no doubts that, it is really, like we talk about it, we say WCF is the heart of WNS. It's the soul of WNS. It really is in the DNA of every person right now.
And let me tell you one thing. I think, the jury, a couple of times that WCF has sent in their work, the jury has always been very intrigued, has always identified it as an area which is underserved, and has appreciated the fact that this is something which is the need of the hour and the future, in terms of especially digital security and secure cyber surfing spaces for children, and they should be aware. So kudos to that, and continue to do the good work that you are.
Thank
And
you.
I hope to see some more amazing work of WNS as well as WCF as part of the SABERA Awards in 2024 as well, Shamini.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suparna. It's been a pleasure.
All right, take care.